Alright guys, we're starting the arms and maybe even finishing with the arms. There's a new project that we have been asked to do. So before we apply the final sculpting poly clay to this, we're going to do some masks for February, which is Black History Month. And yeah, Miss Mark asked us to do that. So before we apply the final process to this, which is the poly clay, then or epoxy clay, we're going to do those masks. This one is a little bit different, but still the same. As you can see, I started some concept sketches just to see how the hands would be. Based on what I saw on the reference, I decided that this would probably be the best shape for the hand. I do want to keep the thickness of the hands and the legs about the same. Maybe the hands a little bit thinner, but we still want to, you know, have this kind of area at the end, so we can make sure that we can jam it in there and it fits very snug. And I want to have, oh, by the way that I'm holding this up is I just put my tape there at the bottom, and that's kind of hold it up for you and let you work on it a little bit more, or at least conceptualize it, which is a big part of everything artistic, is you have to kind of try to envision it in your mind first. So we're going to do this pointy bit, and then an important question is, how far do we want the arm to go out? So you don't want it to go too far out, you know. You gotta try to envision it, but let's take a look at the reference. I'm gonna look at the reference and I'll be right back. So using this reference, we can get an idea of how long the hand is, or the arm and the hand. And we're gonna compare it. I'm just gonna compare it to the shell. So it's about the same length as the shell from the tip of where the arm starts to the tip of the fingers. Is about the same length as the shell. So on our actual sculpture, it'll end up being about the length of the shell. So measure out the shell and, you know, make it appropriately. Remember that this is the tip of the fingers. So, and if it's going to curve a little bit, it's going to be a little bit more inside. It's not going to be so pronounced, so far sticking out. So take all of that into consideration, and then draw out the appropriate length for what you're going to do. Keep in mind that most of this is going to go inside. Okay, the video cut off on me, so I was just saying that I'm going to give it a bit of an elbow to kind of create this shrugging type of thing. The hands are tricky, and they're going to be tricky. Probably the most trickiest thing we've dealt with because of how intricate it is, but we're going to treat it the same way we treat everything else. Make sure that your hands aren't too small compared to the rest of the body. Again, just look at your reference for that. And that's about right if I'm doing it the same length as my shell. And yeah, I just want it to bend a little bit. And both of my arms and hands are going to be the same. So I'm not entirely sure. I was thinking about just doing the hand first and then adding the fingers later with little cones, but I didn't think that was going to work. But I might still have to do something similar to that to try to make this work. So there you go. No, actually I need to do the other end, but the other end could be just like this. So you do two of these to kind of get it round. Maybe a little bit smaller, so it's, well, it doesn't matter, it's a Koopa Troopa, so it could be the same width. And then the hand here is the tricky part. I'm just gonna do the same thing twice, and I'm gonna cut out the fingers, the second finger, I'm gonna cut it in half and just put it across here like this to try to get it to be round, and like this, and like this, and like this. So I'm gonna take this same sketch, cut it out, double it, flip it over, do it again for the right, and that's what I'm gonna use. You guys are welcome to experiment in this part. Remember that our ultimate goal here is to learn. It's not to create a finished product. I know that some of you may not want to do your hands this way based on the references that you're looking at. The references might have the arms crossed or whatnot, and it might not be, you know, easy for you, or it might be easy for you, but you're more than welcome to experiment. I think that if you've gotten this far, you kind of have an idea of what to do, so you're not completely lost. Plus, on the next project, there's going to be a lot of personalization, and I can't do a video for every single person. I'm going to do a video just to cover kind of general things, and it's much of what you've already seen, much of the same. You know, create your stencils, look at your references, try to get the right shape, etc., etc. So I'm going to come back when these are cut out, the cardboard and everything. Okay, so I went to trace out my drawing, and I determined that it'd be best to go like this, the same way we've been doing. So you have a side view and a top view. What I might end up doing though is cutting these fingers into 3 pieces or however many pieces to curve them and glue them around here. When you draw this, you have to draw this going in as well, because we're going to actually separate these, and we're going to add the fingers, and that's what's going to make it look like it's curving. So this extra line right here, you're going to have to add that, okay? Because we're going to cut right into it, and then we're going to separate it. This isn't going to be clean, right? So this is going to be messy. This is going to be messy, but it's expected. At the end of the day, it should look all right. Okay, so I know this part is going to be tricky for some of you, and I want to try to explain it carefully. So this part, this is going to be the right hand. All right. I cut it out like this, and remember I told you that you have to cut it in. Okay, this is what you're going to do. Let me focus the camera. In order to turn it like this. Now, this other piece, right, we're going to cut the fingers off, and we're going to put them on the side here to the top. And of course, the base of the arm, we're going to cut it, and then we're going to cut it, and we're going to attach it to the arm as well, like this. But let me tell you how I got the fingers like this. It's pretty easy. So what you're going to do is, you're going to cut to the middle of the finger on both sides. Some of you guys are going to mess this up, so be really careful here. Don't cut too much, and if you cut too much, you could probably fix it, but you want to leave the middle so you can turn it. And it just needs to last long enough to where you can glue the other pieces on, and then you have your fingers. So that's what we're trying to do. The thumb is a bit tricky. You have to cut from the wrist here. And from the wrist here. Again. Once you cut like that, then you turn it. Leave enough of the center so it doesn't fall apart on you. And it might fall apart, but you know, you fix it to the best of your ability. So far I've been lucky, and I've managed to hold them together. And then later we're gonna add some stuff here, and we might have to push this back a bit more depending on how we want the finger to move. But we are definitely going to take this piece, cut these fingers off, cut them down the middle, and we're gonna glue them to the sides of these, okay? Let me just finish up this hand. And usually before I bend any of it, I like to make the cuts. I think it just makes it a little bit easier, but just so we were clear and you understood what was happening, I saved this for a little bit later. You See, because it creates some problems, but so be it. And we're going to turn this. And we're going to turn this. And we're going to turn this. And that's going to create, once you add the other pieces to the sides, that's going to create the three-dimensional fingers. And of course, the base of the arm, we're going to cut it, and we're going to add it here and here. And the next step you'll see is all of that put together already. And I'll come back, and then we start the gridding process, and we start the stuffing process, and then you know the rest. So I just cut it, and it's not even enough. So I'm gonna have to go back to the drawing board and draw new fingers. So I'm gonna have to draw new fingers that are better triangles. And maybe even a bit longer. Skinnier at the base because we don't have that much to work with. But I'm going to draw those out individually. I'm going to cut them out of the cardboard and I'm going to use them for my thumb. And I'm talking about drawing out fingers like this. We're going to cut it down the middle, and we're going to curve it. And this way it'll be even on both sides. The problem with the one I just did is that it is not symmetrical. It is asymmetrical. So this, I think, is going to work a lot better. Okay, so I cut out the new fingers that look like that, and that's working great. And I actually glued those on, but now it's still very loose, so I'm just gonna glue these two fingers together to give it a bit more stability. And as I go, I'm just gonna glue the fingers together. And that's how I'm gonna do it. So I finished putting the hands together as far as this step is concerned, and so far so good. For this piece here, I am going to trim it down, so when I start adding the grids, it kind of lines up a little bit more. So that's what I wanted to show you right now, that you may have to trim this, but trim it how you see fit. And I think that's a lot better, and that should help me considerably just to start thinning out the hands. I'm still not quite sure how I'm gonna fill in the space between the fingers. Maybe even adding another piece like that diagonally, and that will give it a lot of strength, and just wrapping tape around it. That's a possibility. But I'll see what I can do. Right now, actually, I'm leaning towards cutting little tiny pieces of paper, just jamming them in there, just to give it some strength. And then when you wrap the tape around, it'll probably keep its edge. So just maybe gluing individual pieces of paper in there. And yeah, next thing that you're gonna see is I'm gonna come back with the grid along here. Maybe not inside the fingers because the paper may be too thick, but maybe I will do it inside the fingers. I don't know. But the next thing you're gonna see is a bit more gridding. Definitely I'm gonna make a bridge here with the gridding, and I'm gonna bridge all the fingers to the wrist, and that will give it much more stability. And probably the same thing on the palm. All right. Okay, something just occurred to me is that a lot of you guys have very small sculptures compared to mine. Some of you are larger, but when it comes to fine intricate work like this, it helps to have a sculpture that's a little bit bigger. I understand it may be too late to make it bigger, but you can go ahead and make the hands bigger just to help with the process. Or you're gonna have to get creative and maybe without the video's assistance figure out how to make a fist. I think you can do it. You make like a ball up some paper, and then with the gridding you could start adding little ridges and things like that wherever you need to. So those of you that are doing really tiny things, You're either gonna have to make this bigger or you're gonna have to do something else. Okay, I continue to experiment to try to figure out what the best way to fill in these fingers is, and the cutting these things in half was not working. So just don't even try that. What I'm gonna try next is I'm gonna try to roll pieces of paper and I'm gonna try to put it right along there. I'm gonna glue it, I'm gonna glue it, I'm gonna glue it, I'm gonna glue it. I think it may be a little bit tough to cut off at the top, but I think that's gonna do the trick. I'm gonna try it, and if it works, I'll be back. If it doesn't work, I'll tell you that too. Okay, so that worked. But in doing that, I kind of thought, well, why didn't I do the fingers like this in the first place? And it may not be as detailed, but I think you could probably pull it off. The only thing I'm concerned about is if you just do the fingers with papers, you're not going to be able to get the paper to curve. Yeah, so the paper might not curve. You probably have to put some anchors. Like once you create the paper, you put an anchor here of the gridding, and that may work. But that would be a lot easier if you just crumple up paper, sharpen it, and curve it, and then anchor it. So I'm gonna keep going like this, but maybe in class I'll tell you that you may be able to just anchor it. This technique though is pretty cool. And of course there will be situations where you can't use the paper, and I'm not sure the paper will be too good in this one, but it will definitely be a lot easier. So that's on the table if you want to give it a try. Another thing that I'm thinking about is possibly just filling that in with hot glue. If the space is small enough, especially those of you that are working really small, just put a bunch of hot glue in there, and that might work. So yeah, the next thing you guys are gonna see are probably, I'm not even gonna grid in here. I'm just gonna stuff that with paper. It's just a small space, and then I may do a grid around, maybe not. But since this is so small, I don't know. You just play it by ear. You know, I know we're all doing different sizes, so what works for me might not work for you, and what works for you might not work for me. But I think that I'm just gonna start stuffing this with paper, and maybe just tape it. Maybe grid it. We'll see. Okay, so I ended up just filling this in with hot glue. It took a long time, but I think that was the best option for me. Now I am gonna put some grids because this isn't holding, so I'm gonna put some and just leave the top open, and I'm gonna stuff it through the top, and then I'm gonna put the tape on. Okay, so this one is finished, and I've already started opening up the gap for that. I'm gonna try to put it in as much as possible. I feel like it's a bit long. I could shorten it, but I'm gonna try to just jam it in there, see how it looks before I decide to shorten it or anything. And yeah, this one is stuffed. So now I'm just gonna cover it in tape, and then I'm gonna put them in. I put the first arm in. Let me get the camera strap out of the way. So the first arm is in. It's just like the leg. You're gonna have to figure out how to adjust it. It was a bit long, so maybe make yours a little bit shorter. It's kind of more scary than I wanted it to be, but so be it. It doesn't always work out the way you intend, because I kind of wanted him shrugging, and it might still turn out that way. Let me see if I can turn it a little bit. It might still turn out that way once I put the other one in. Yeah, I think it will. We'll see. I'm gonna put the other one in, and then I'm gonna clean it up, and that'll be it. Okay, you guys, well, this is it. The arms are on. The only thing that's actually missing here is a tail. But I don't think I have to add a tail. I think you guys know enough by this point to be able to put a tail on if you wanted to. He's got his arms, he's got his legs, and of course there's lots of detail work that needs to be done, so when we do add the clay to it or whatever, I already bought that, I do have it. We can use it to shape the shell. I know that there's definitely some ridges here across the belly. I didn't cover this up because from the references, I do believe that you could kind of see that there's a gap there. And that's it. I'll see you in class.